Today on the podcast of Diaries of Sadman, we have Dustin Gullit. Uh, Dustin, I was looking, and I think I saw that you started your career in 1998 in the education realm. Is that correct?
Yeah, I graduated in '98. I'm dating myself way back, but yeah, I graduated in '98, and I started right after high school working for a school district. So I
Really?
started mowing lawns for the school district. So the yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So it
So
was
you're
cool.
finishing
I,
up
I
high
really enjoyed
school.
that job.
You're getting a
So
job at the school district to mow lawns. Tell me about a little bit how that came upon and what came after.
so right after high school, I wanted to do heating and air conditioning, which I realized really quick living here in Texas was probably not the greatest choice. Yeah, I was mowing lawns forever. Well, it felt like forever, but started out mowing lawns. I eventually somehow what was happening is I was mowing lawns, and the people that were doing heating and air conditioning were up on the roofs. And back then we had communication lines running in between all the air conditioning units, and they saw me, uh, offered me a spot because they always saw me working, still at the school district. But I got in. That's how I sort of got my foot in the door into technology, is troubleshooting LAN communications between air conditioning units. So I had to learn that, and that's sort of running cable, troubleshooting circuit
So in
boards
that
and things
time,
like
then were
that.
you
That's
with like
that's
the
how it all
facilities
started.
crew, or were you with like the IT crew at that time?
I was with the facilities crew. So yeah, at that time, again, dating myself, we used we traveled with these beige modems, 56K dial-up modems, and what we would have to do is we would have to dial into the school's modem, and we would have to turn the AC on or turn it off or whatever. And so I learned how to start doing phone lines, right? Because we had to have dial up, and if the modem line didn't work, we couldn't dial into the school. So I learned how to start doing phone lines, which eventually led into voice over IP. So I started learning subnetting and networking. And then I took a big giant step back and went and joined the Marines. And so I left all of that, and I did network
Wow.
security with the Marine Corps for 6 years. So it really elevated the IT stuff. Because yeah, I did had a passion for it, and the Marines
So then
really
you're
elevated
you
that
know you're
for sure.
finishing up your stint at the school. You head over to the Marines. Were you fully active, or were you on reserves?
I was reserves because I did.
Mhm.
Yeah, my big thing was I made really good money with where I was and what I did already, and then I joined in 2006, and so that was like right, in the middle of everything going on. In the middle, I'm still going on, sort of, but um, went to join to serve. I did network security as a reservist. As a reservist back then, you were pretty much guaranteed to go though, because there was a lot going on. I didn't know until I checked in with my unit that doing network security, they had civilian contractors do all of that over there overseas. And so they were like, basically, hey, you're not going to deploy being your current MOS. And so I started training to be Motor T so that I could deploy. And yeah, by that time I got my Motor T license and everything, they started pulling the
Wow.
troops out. So I
So you were
never did
kind of in
deploy.
this like half
So
studying
yeah,
for IT, half studying to get deployed kind of concept.
right,
Wow.
right.
And
So it
and
was
at that
fun.
time, then,
I enjoyed it.
like how, like did you specifically go in? Not specifically, but like, how did you get into that kind of specialty of like IT, um, into the reserves?
Well, I did really well on my ASVAB, and so I did qualify for every job in the Marine Corps. And since I had that telephony background, I did PBX phone systems, and starting out voice over IP and things like that. I had that knack for it, and I figured that would definitely elevate that. I never did. Well, I wouldn't say I never did go to college. I did go to college. It just wasn't for me. The whole four wall sitting in a classroom type thing, I couldn't do it. So yeah, the Marines were my
Yeah,
college.
and I
And
bet
I
it's
learned from
really,
there.
because the resources they offer are right. It's not just the textbook. I'm sure you get a lot of hands-on stuff, um, you know, different courses. So it's
Absolutely.
a little bit beyond the textbook. So
Yeah. Yeah, I went, I got all my CompTIAs, the Security Plus, Net Plus, all of that. I got my CCNA while I was in the Marines. And I did. I breathed network, and that was it. And I didn't, all of the stuff that I do now, like it does, with like the Entra private access and internet access and all of that. I like it because it's starting to come back to my roots, right? My networking roots. I used to be able to subnet in my head. And I can no longer do that anymore. But it's cool. I mean, that's where I got my start, and so ultimately, I don't do network firewalls or anything like that. I know 'em,
Yeah,
but I don't
and that's the thing with
do them.
technology,
So
right? Like it kind of ebbs and or not ebbs and flows, but there are different avenues, and right, who knows where you're gonna end up. So
absolutely, yeah, yeah. Everyone's like, "Hey, you doing IT? Like, can you build me a web page or something?" And I'm like, "No, like that's not." It's not what I do. So IT is broad, as you probably know. It's massive, and there's so many different avenues and fields that you can go down. And I really happened into what where I'm at now. So I came back from the Marines, and I went back to the school district where I did their ZenWorks, and which is old school uh, uh, MDM solution. And then we transferred over to Case, which at the time it was Dell Case, and then eventually over to SCCM, and then sort of that's how I got into it. But like with that background in the Marines, it really
so you talked
elevated
about
that
ZenWorks.
knowledge quite a bit.
What do you when you think about that? What kind of memories does that bring back?
Old memories. Yeah, I mean, I got really good at command line because so much of it was command line, batch scripting. Man, I had so many batch scripts for everything. But yeah, I mean, you look at where it was then, doing a GPO or making a configuration in ZenWorks to now, like where you go and you do those things in Intune. It's very interesting. But yeah, just the things that I used to have to do to make stuff work. I did ZenWorks at the school district. We transferred a case where then my next job was at a major hospital here in Dallas, which is a university hospital. And so they were transitioning from Case to, or from ZenWorks to Case. And so I had that knowledge. And so we had about 35,000 devices there that I got to manage with ZenWorks, and then eventually Case. And then we ripped Case out and put in SCCM. But this, of course, was like really before
So
Intune
I've
was
never heard of
a
Case.
thing. So
What is it only specific for Dell
yeah,
or what? Mhm.
no, Dell owned them at one point. I think now they're owned by Quest. So when I did Case, they were here in Austin, like the engineers and everything. Like you could just call them up, and on their cell phone, it was like three guys, and you could say, "Hey, I got this problem," and they would just go and fix it. Then Dell bought them. Dell owned them for a few years. I don't know how many years, and then they sold them to Quest. And I think the last time I checked, Quest still uses them. I know I do have customers from time to time. When I'm transitioning them to Intune, they're like, "Yeah, we're using Case right now." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it's like, uh, I haven't seen it in years, but it's really the same. But yeah, it's more. It wasn't really Dell specific, but there was a lot of
So
Dell
was
really
it similar
elevated that
to
one
like
as well.
the concepts of an MDM platform where you have devices in there and you're essentially deploying policies, etc. to it?
It wasn't really so much policies. Like you could do scripts and things like that. They call it the K1000, which was like your MDM. It's nowhere what Intune is now, but it would do your patching and your application deployments and things like that. Then you had your K2000, which was your imaging server, which is how you would build your images out. And then they were piloting a what's called a K3000, and that was like your iPhone and Android, your mobile, true mobile device. And I don't think that one ever got off the ground. So, but yeah,
Were there
I
like
got to learn all
people
of that really
blogging
early
about it?
on.
Were there
So,
videos on it? Kind of how were you getting your knowledge on those platforms?
um, yeah, so there was a site, and that site's still there. Actually, I hopped on it the other day. It's itninja.com. It's primarily around Case. There is some SCCM stuff in there. I have seen some Intune things in there. But yeah, my account's still there. They had a whole belt system. I have it somewhere. It's probably my wife probably hid it from me, but they sent me like a black belt and all that because I used to like comment on blogs and things like that and stuff like that. So it was a whole point system. But yeah, it was IT Ninja. It's still around. So and there's a lot of good like application deployment tools and tricks and switches and things like that to use to deploy your
It's kind
common
of
everyday
crazy
apps
to
on that site.
right
So
because I'm so intrigued. I don't know if intrigued or it's the right word, but right, my life has revolved around like after Active Directory, CCM, and Intune, where I really don't have the scope of these other different platforms, but they do exist.
yeah, it's I really got thrown into the ZenWorks world. The guy that managed it, he was like, "Hey, I'm leaving in 2 weeks," and they were like, "Hey, Dustin, do you want to do it?" And back then, I didn't know how to sysprep an image. I didn't know any of that. I had to really learn it like really quick in 2 weeks. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other platforms in it, and I think that helps me too. Like I mentioned, like I have customers that still use Case. Hey, we're moving to Intune. We're using Case today. Like, okay, cool. Like I've done that. I've seen that. I haven't had any customers on ZenWorks, but there's all kinds of other MDM platforms out there, and so that's my primary job now is really migrating users over
Crazy. But
to the
that's
Intune
awesome. That's
platform.
a unique experience that if you aren't working in a consulting realm
Yeah,
or in the realm where you're helping other people migrate from one platform to another, that you don't get to see those different platforms.
I get to see it a lot, and that's one of the things I love about my job. It's not cookie cutter at all. I work with customers around the world, all different sizes of customers. They have all kinds of crazy applications or configurations, and I get to talk to them and like, hey, why are you doing that? And and they explain to me why they're doing it, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Let's find a solution. Let's find a solution in Intune to get
Yeah.
you off of that current MDM. So I get to work a lot with
Yeah, because not only do
figuring
you have
out
the technology
puzzles, I guess you
portion,
could say.
but the people portion also comes into play.
Right, right. Yeah, and I've had to learn that a lot. Me and my wife joke a lot. My wife is very much an extrovert. I am an introvert. She tells me I'm not anymore, but I am. I do have to talk a lot more to customers and things like that. So I've come out of my
How
shell
did
a
how
lot
did
lately. So
so was it in that system? Was it in that healthcare industry where you really picked up that endpoint space and kind of those MDM platforms? Then
yeah, we when we transitioned from Case to SCCM, my manager at the time, I was giving him a hard time. He came in and he was like, "This SCCM thing is what we need." I was like, "Man, Case is running. Like, why would we do that?" And he was the manager, so we switched to SCCM. If he's watching this, hey Chris. But at the time, I was pretty angry about it. I'm like, dude, it's working. Like, leave it alone. But we came in, we spun up SCCM, got it up and going, transitioned everything over. That ran great for a few years. The Intune platform came out back then. It was in Azure. You didn't go to Intune.microsoft.com. You actually went to Azure to get to Intune. So I don't know if anybody's watching that remembers that. Again, I'm dating myself. I am old. But yeah, I mean, we would go. I was watching the Intune training YouTube channel. Those guys like. I would literally just watch a video from them in the morning and then like implement whatever I learned from them in the afternoon. I mean, like, because the way they explained it, it was like, oh, that's like really it's not bad. Like if you watch it, it's like okay, like just a few clicks, and then like they would release a video. It seemed like every week, um, and that's where I learned a lot from. So
so do you remember when you
in
made
the
that
Intune
transition
platform.
from
So
ConfigMem to Intune, like the 2014 2018 timeframe? Then
it was before COVID. I don't remember exactly when because I know. So that was the thing. Like we were all E5 licensed. All of our customers or all of our users were E5, and so like we're paying for Intune, right? So me, like SCCM was working. Nothing wrong with SCCM. I love SCCM, but it's like, hey, like we're paying for this thing. Like let's go. Just let me go check it out. And so I slowly rolled people over without like a lot of approvals. It's easier to ask for forgiveness, right? And so I had transitioned a lot. to Intune. Actually, our entire environment. When COVID happened, there was a big panic because we sent 13,000 people home overnight. And it was like, hey, come get your desktop and like take it home and all of that. And there was a lot of panic, but no one had really planned for, hey, Dustin actually got us into Intune. No one really knew that. Like, we were cloud managed. It was fine. Like, it was okay. Like, hey, if we got to do a GPO, guess what? I just click this button in Intune rather than having someone to VPN and all that stuff. So yeah, it was before COVID. I don't know the exact date, but I know, like, I do remember like having to log into Azure to get to Intune, old school. So, but yeah, I mean, we were prepped for COVID. Hopefully we don't ever have another pandemic like that. But they sent 13,000 people home, and we really didn't skip a beat. So yeah, and I learned quite a bit from that.
And especially during that time frame, right? I think if you were, in the cloud already, things were still tough, but it was a little easier from the management perspective.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, the big thing is, and even after COVID, because I went to work with like the other partner and everything, I had that background, but I worked with a lot of customers that didn't have that cloud. It's like, how did you guys manage COVID? How did you do that? And it's like, okay, well, we had to have VPN, right? So we created GPO, maybe it's to block a 0-day or whatever to fix something. So now you got to have your user VPN in so they can get that GPO. So what happens if they don't VPN? Like, they're just vulnerable, right? So like, what do you do there? And like, you just pray they don't click on a malicious link or something like that, I guess. So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's good to be ahead of it. And I still work with customers today. They're not, fully, there. It's not even hybrid join.
It's a tough one. My hat's off to both CM admins and Intune admins, right? It's maybe,
right.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's like maybe some of the folks have, maybe they need air-gapped environments for certain scenarios, or it's like, right, I'm also not their IT bosses or managers, so I can't be like, you should do this, and I'm like, hey,
yeah,
I got enough on my plate, but you do you.
Yeah, I do make suggestions. I do have some customers that are on air gap networks, right? So we have to accommodate those things, So I do still have a very strong footprint in SCCM. That's where I really learned a lot of this, but ultimately Intune is where it's at. But yeah, those air gap networks and things like those very unique situations are, I get to figure out that puzzle, like I mentioned earlier. So.
I think I saw you transition to the consulting world in 2021. Were you kind of like, following the steps of, like helping people with migrations and like about the modern workplace technologies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I got brought in for my SCCM knowledge, right? So there was a lot. Our team had a lot of Intune knowledge. There was very few that had SCCM knowledge, right? So like the co-management, all of that, they didn't really have anybody that could talk that. So yeah, I started there. Worked with Steve. I'm sure everybody's seen Steve's videos, but like, I mean, working with Steve is like, having just constant access to like just this. I mean, just imagine watching a YouTube video like all day long. And I learned a lot. Like I really went in there. I thought I knew Intune when I started, and I realized I didn't when I started. But I learned really quick. But yeah, I mean, it was just working with a few folks out there that just really brought me up to speed. Really,
do you remember
really quick,
some of the blogs or videos that you watched in Intune that you're like that really stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, like I remember interviewing before I went to work with for that consulting company, and I remember talking to Steve and Sean and things like that when I was interviewing with them, and I went and read the blogs because I didn't. I mean, just being honest. Sorry, Steve, if you're watching this, I didn't read Steve's blogs before. And back then, but Steve didn't have the YouTube channel and all of that back then. So, but I started reading his blogs and I was like, man, this actually makes sense. Like why I was really overthinking it, right? And he just the way he explains it, it's like, hold on, like try not to be like over the top. Like it's actually not too terribly difficult. Like try not to, take on the whole thing at the same time. So, but yeah, his blogs really helped me. Then he later on, got the YouTube going and things like that. And then eventually like the Microsoft MVP. But like I said, I mean, I had constant access to him, and him and like Jesse and things like that. And it's just I learned a ton from them
It's like
really quick.
having
And
Copilot. They were
so
your
yeah.
Copilot.
Yeah, it was Copilot before Copilot was cool. I mean, I would ask a question in our Teams chat, and I could get like the most detailed answer, or he would be like, "Hey, just let me hop on a call with you real quick." Like he would hop in with like I'd be on a customer call, and he would like, "Hey, I got 10 minutes. I'll just hop on." And I got to see it, right? And I'm like a sponge, and I absorbed it, and I'm very good at like seeing something and retaining it and
And
getting to
those are the
use it
best
over
type
and
of
over
people,
and over
right?
again. So
Because they're happy to show you, and they're not judging. They're like, here, let's just break it down. So
yeah. And that's why I love what I do, right? Because it's not, I mean, my job, I could script my job, right? I could just go in there and run a script and be done with you guys. Like, see you later. But like the best part of my job is like I get to like explain this, like, hey, that check mark box right there. Guess what? If you check it, you're gonna see these three other things happen, right? Because I have seen it. I've done it so many times, but I get to share that now, and it's really cool because like I don't just go and run a script. I know there's a lot of maybe other people that do. Yes, very capable. I'm capable of running scripts, but I don't a lot because I like to see that hey, if we check mark that box, this is what happens. Yes, we can make a graph call on the back end to make it do the thing, but it's cool to to sort of break it down, because if you're coming in really high level talking
you're
about
gonna
graph
lose them.
calls, like the people that are just learning Intune, they're gonna
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna
and
scare them
especially
away.
right, like
So
I think it's a great field for new people and veterans, right? It's and if
but yeah,
eventually the veterans are gonna retire, like um, let's make it a platform
yeah,
for the next gen, So, right, I think it
right.
has both capabilities for entry and really people like script geniuses, right? So,
Yeah, and it's constantly evolving. I started one of the reasons I started blogging, again, throwing a shout out to Steve. Steve was like, you got to start sharing your information, like, because I think I eventually I didn't get up to his level. I'm still not at his level, but he schooled me enough to where I'm like, actually, there's an easy way to do this. And he was like, you got to share, you got to like start blogging. And so I started blogging, and it's like, but like doing the blogs for me now helps me, because when you're writing it out and doing steps, like, I mean, there was one I did over like CIS benchmarks. And when I was in there doing the vulnerability management add-on, they added a new checkmark box. Well, the last time I implemented it, that checkmark box wasn't there. So I was like, what is this checkmark box? And I got to go research what that checkmark box was. And
so
so
you
it's
you
cool.
mentioned your blog. Do you remember
Always
when
sharing.
you got it started?
It was this year in January. Yeah. My previous employer, I was incredibly busy. My jobs range from, Azure Update Manager to SCCM co-management to iOS to CIS benchmarks. I mean, you name it. If it was in the Microsoft stack, I pretty much did it. The Defender, Entra migrations, all of that. I was incredibly busy, and I kept telling Steve, like, just hold on, it's coming. Like, I gotta, like, because I set myself a goal, like, okay, at the end of this year, at the end of 2024, I'm not gonna be so slammed where I can start like taking a step back and start sharing. And I started
Nice. And do you have
January
like
of
a
this year. So
weekly cadence, or is it like when something pops up in your head, you're putting it on paper?
yeah, something pops up in my head. I know I joke with my wife from time to time because there's times where it's been 4 a.m. and I'm like, I'll wake up. I'm an old man now, so like wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. But you know, I'd be like, man, that'd be a good blog, and then I could start like just just starting throwing it out there. So my wife has been very accommodating to me because there's a lot of weekends. I'll write blogs on the weekends, and I usually schedule them to go out. I don't always release them on the weekends, but yeah, so they'll come out, early in the week, but they're usually written over the weekends. So, and yeah, my wife is very like, she's like, "Are you working or are you blogging?" And because I was like,
Yep.
she doesn't want me
It's
working on the weekends, but it looks like
you're
I'm
looking at the
working
same
because
screen you're looking
I'm in
at
the Microsoft
throughout the
stack. Yeah,
day.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, she's like, just making sure you're not working.
It
Like,
is
no,
this
I'm not working.
weird
I'm not
pendulum
working on
of
the
like,
weekends. So
it is my work, but it's not kind of concept. Like, it is my work because it helps
right.
me learn and, retain that info, but it's kind of, for others to get useful information out of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it helps me because there's been times where just last week I was asked by a customer, like, well, do you have any experience in this? I was like, well, actually, here's my blog that I wrote on it. And it does help. I mean, I'm doing some purview stuff earlier today.
Hmm.
Just I don't do a lot of purview now, but I'm starting that because I'm very, I don't. I'm very strong on the defender side and the entre side, but like the purview is sort of like there. But I'm starting to learn that, and there'll
Yeah,
probably be some
and
blogs
that's the
coming out
really
on that
neat
here
part
shortly.
of the
So
Microsoft stack, right? It's not just 1, 2. It's like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things. Yeah.
yes, and they all integrate, right? I mean, yeah, because you got like Defender for Cloud Apps, right? That has like purview integrations. Like if this is shared, then apply this label, things like that. And so like, how do you not? You have
Mhm.
to sort of know the whole stack
Yeah,
to
and I can
make
imagine
sure
if
those
like
integrations
customers
are
and people
there.
are asking you for like certain scenarios, you know, you having that broad background, or even just like purview, right? Going out to find out information about it. I'm sure is really helpful for them.
Right.
So, mhm.
Right. Yeah.
So you have
Yeah,
some
for
crazy
sure.
pictures on your
Yep.
blogs. Well, how did that come about? How did that come about?
Um, you know, some do, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on my mood. I try not to do everything based on food. My dog actually is right here right now. He hears me talking, but he was on my recent one. He's my bulldog. And so he was there with the birthday hat on. But I don't know. I mean, just sometimes it's AI, sometimes there's a platform that my former manager told me about. It's called Envato, that you can just do stock images, and so it was pretty cool. But I don't know. I try to capture the reader's attention, because when I blog, I mean, I can get very technical, right? But I don't want to be like, I don't want to put you to sleep. I don't want 30 pages of delivery optimization or something like that. So but I try to keep your attention, and just it's usually AI, things like that. But I just, yeah. So it's the most random picture
Talk about
usually
grabbing
that I
somebody's
can find.
attention. It does. I was looking, just scrolling the other day on LinkedIn, and like a lot of your blogs, I kind of like just stop at the picture, and I'm like, okay, I'll read the content, but that picture is that kind of initial. I'm like, is that tacos?
Yeah,
Let me go read about it.
yeah, yeah, man. Well, and I'm a big foodie, man. So I'm all about the tacos. I did one about meatloaf, and that meatloaf one was a true story. I seriously had the meatloaf on the smoker, and it was like, oh crap,
You're
like,
good. You're
so.
good.
Sorry, my dog is like, he knows I'm talking about him right now. But no, I mean the tacos. I got the smoker out back. I'm always smoking some ribs or brisket or something like that out back. So usually a
do you
lot of my
have do you have a
blogs are
Traeger, or
related
do you have some
to
other
food.
smoker?
So I do have a Traeger. Yeah. I bought the Traeger a couple years ago because I do work remote, and it's nice because I can go and just set it, and I have it, from my phone. I could check the temperature of the meat, things like that, where I don't have to really babysit it too much. I know there's going to be people out there that will be like, Traegers aren't really a smoker. Um, you know, I try, I may get a big boy smoker one day, but it's going to be when I'm not in, back-to-back calls, and I get to actually
Hey, you gotta work with
monitor
the
it.
tools you
So
got.
yeah, I know, man. But yeah, I think one day when I get older, I'll get an actual, wood smoker, not a pellet grill, because I know there's probably some people that might say something about the pellet grill out
So
there.
then, are you a big barbecue fan?
But
Being out in Texas. Mm-hmm.
I'm a big food fan, really. But yeah, I mean barbecue, tacos. I mean, you name it. I mean, it's always. I got my son out there somewhere. He's 8 years old.
Ooh.
He's like my sous chef. He'll sit in there. It makes my wife nervous because he'll cut up onions and stuff. I'm like, hey man, I need that onion cut up, and he'll cut it up, or I need that tomato cut up, and he's got it. Hey, open up those 3 cans, and he'll do it. So, but yeah, he's like my little
That's
sous
awesome.
chef. So
You're good. You're
sorry, my dog is like just.
good.
So, he was on. I would pick him up
Wow.
to show you, but he's a 95-pound bulldog. So he was on that last blog
He
that I
wants
wrote.
in on
He
the
sat there
action.
with his birthday hat on.
He wants to be on the podcast.
He does. Yeah.
So I saw you're also a
For
photographer. Sure. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my kids are very involved with soccer. Incredibly involved. My daughter's actually at a soccer game tonight. So she just turned 17. She'll be a senior. Doing the whole college recruitment thing, social media. And so I bought a camera about a year ago, about a year and a half ago, just to start taking pictures so she could put them on social media and all that. And it turned into like a hobby, because what was happening is like, I would have pictures of her. I would give her the pictures, and she would put them on her Instagram and everything. And then her friends were like, well, can I get pictures? And so then it turned into like, you know what, now I'm just taking pictures of the whole entire team. But no, they I just, I'm always at a soccer field. So, I was there last night, and I'm constantly just taking pictures. So it went from like a small lens, just because I was to take a few shots for her to send to colleges and stuff like that, to, my lens is around here somewhere, but it's massive now. I went a little bit overboard. I bought a big lens so I can get across the soccer field. But yeah, that's my hobby. That's my break away from doing what I do now, is going out and shooting pictures on the soccer field. Usually on the soccer field. I've done a few football games and things like that, but
how are you learning
usually
the
soccer,
techniques for like photography? Is it really
Chat GPT, man? Yeah, Chat GPT, like you can put in your camera model and your lens and everything, and I learned so much because like it would sit there and tell you like the exact settings. Like you have a Nikon D7500, it was like you need to set this and that and this, and it was like crap. Like it actually knew exactly what I needed and the settings that are required. So if you look at the progression from my pictures, you could tell I've learned along the way, because they started out pretty blurry and things like that, and now they're still not perfect, but they're a lot clearer.
That's
and they look nice.
really useful. I mean, I didn't even think about that. Like,
yeah.
Right? You have this camera, a ton of settings. If you're a newbie, you like, what the heck do I even do? So
yeah, and that's the thing. I'm sure the other AI platforms do it, but like with ChatGPT, you can put memories in there, so it knows what kind of camera I have and things like that, and I can ask it. Now like I've been on the phone, on the app on my phone, on the sideline, and saying, hey, daylight or whatever, like what settings should I do? And it would, you need to adjust such and such and such and such. And so I'm like, okay. And it works. I mean, now I don't use it as often, but like getting started, definitely there's so many buttons on that camera.
Talk about like self-servicing. That's awesome.
Yeah, you got to use AI, man. If you don't mention AI in a podcast, I mean, are you even podcasting, right? So we did get it out of the way.
I want to go back to your blogs. Do you have a lot of like devices and equipment that you're working with, or are you running off of like a beefy laptop with a bunch of virtual machines? Okay.
I have a beefy desktop with a bunch of virtual machines. I do have my laptop around here somewhere. I actually am looking into building a little home lab. One of my new coworkers, Jared, this guy is like he's big on the Nook fan, so he's got Nooks, and he keeps dropping hints about using Proxmox and things like that. And he's like, they're cheap. You could build your own cluster, and so I'm thinking about that might be my next purchasing a few of those. But yeah, right now I'm pretty much all in the cloud. So except for my beefy
Yeah, I
desktop
can
that
imagine
runs
as
multiple
you're testing
VMs.
new
So
things, getting more into blogging, maybe more devices will pop up. Um,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because some of the stuff you have to have a physical device for, right? So, I've
mhm.
had customers where like they're doing kiosk, right? So hey, we're doing self-deploying profiles, like you can't do that on a VM. So like there's some times where I have my closet back there. I have like some old laptops that I'll break out and hook up to my tenant, but they're not always out there when needed. But
Yeah,
yeah, I try to
I'm sure
stay in the virtual
your wife
world as much as I
appreciates that
can.
too, right?
Yeah, I just bought this big desk the other day. So yeah, she gives me a lot of grace a lot of times because like this desk is massive right now. So, but I needed a lot more space to branch out. So when COVID happened, I didn't plan on staying remote for this long. So I bought like a nice little cheap little $100 desk, and I used it for 5 years. And so I recently
I
actually
see you have the
just
awesome
upgraded.
chair. Is that
So
a new purchase too?
newer, not brand new, but newer because yeah, this I got the standing desk and sitting, so I'll stand the majority of the day. But like it's evening time for me, so my legs, especially for the Marines and stuff like that, my knees aren't what they used to be. So my
Did you play
everything
any
hurts
sports
usually.
growing
So
up? Growing up?
I played baseball growing up all the way up until my freshman year, and then I was like, see ya. So, but that was it. Yeah, I didn't, as much as involved in my kids are in soccer right now. Like you would think I would have grew up playing soccer, but I didn't. I've learned a lot about soccer over the past few years, but I do have 7 kids, so there's a lot. I'm always at a sporting event. It seems
Yeah,
like
that's
so.
awesome. Let's see. And in terms of let's see. In terms of like using AI, I'm gonna bring it up. Um, what are some ways like that you
Yeah,
might use it or you find it useful for like obviously like the camera portion was really good.
right. I mean, we talked about food, man. I hate making like, I do have a very large family. My wife and I, we have 2 bio kids, and we've adopted 5, so I do have 7 kids. And so I hate planning dinner as much as I love cooking and eating. I hate planning it. So I actually set up, AI actually plans our meals for the most part for the
Hmm.
week. It'll give me a shopping list and everything. So I use it for coding and things like that. Really to spot check me. I use it,
Hmm.
and I read a blog on this, and I can't credit who I read it. I know I've read it though, but it's not. I can't take credit for it. But like, use it as like a personal assistant. Like you ask it questions. Don't treat it like a robot or a computer or anything like that. You're genuinely having a conversation with it, and that's how you get the best results. There's a lot of times where I've had this rubber duck on my desk forever. I don't know if you ever heard about
No,
like the rubber
no.
duck thing they used to do at MIT.
Hmm.
Whenever you ran into a problem, what you would do is you would basically describe your problem to the rubber duck. Usually something in the brain, if as you're explaining your problem, you can usually work it out on your own, right? So the whole joke is like you have the rubber duck on your desk, and if you run into a problem back before AI, like I would just like no joke, I know as funny as it sounds, I would have a conversation with the rubber duck on my desk. And a lot of times when you're talking it out though, you would actually figure out your own issue. Like but now it's like,
Yeah,
AI is
no.
like my rubber duck almost.
It
So
definitely does help to kind
just
of
have a
have like
conversation.
even if it's just like something simple, right? Just to even have that kind of ideas spark up. Mhm. Actually, I was talking to somebody,
Right.
and the
Right.
way they use it is like, say, for instance, for a blog, they'll write out like, the 3 topics to write about, and they'll say like who they're going to write it for, and so that AI can kind of give them like some tailored questions to ask, but then they'll put their own flavor, and they're like, at least we're tailoring it to the people that we want it to get to. So that was a neat concept that
Right.
I hadn't really thought about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's incredible. My kids use it a lot now, which, when AI was like first, I mean, I know AI has been around before it really got the label AI because now everything's AI. But, when it first came out, like everybody's like, oh, it's cheating, it's plagiarizing and all that. But like, I think now, like with this next generation, you mentioned the next generation coming up. Like, if you don't know AI, like you're
Mhm.
going to be behind. Like, I mean, it's obviously it's coming. It's not stopping. And it like use it. Use a tool, things like that, and start using it in everyday life.
Yeah.
Make your
And it gives you
recipes
a
or
great
whatever it
like
is. So
estimate of like say you have 10 people coming over for dinner. Like, hey, how much meat do I need? How much
right,
marinade? What is the marinade I
yeah.
should make for this? So
Yeah, I will. Because since I do work remote, I do the majority of the cooking in the house, and so like, I mean, there'll be times where like I tell the kids like, Chat GPT made this recipe tonight. Like I don't, and it'll spit out the recipe to me, and I mean, sometimes they're pretty legit, and it's like, all right,
I
this is a
I
good
know
one.
there's a
So
chef. Ah, what's the name? What's the name? Famous chef. He owns like a. Anyways, he was saying like, man, some of these chefs are gonna have it really nice because in the concept of also a chef, like they have a co-pilot to give them the exact recipes, the exact timing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because like I don't know what it's like being a chef, but it's like if you have the right ingredients, the right like measurements, you can get it pretty close. I'd imagine.
yeah. Yeah, and that's and I don't want to
Hmm.
like share. I don't want to be like one of those guys
Yeah.
like, well, back in my day, we had to walk uphill in the snow both ways. Like, man, I mean, going back to like ZenWorks when I had to write a batch script to do like to copy a shortcut file or something like that. Like I didn't have AI to do that, and like it was like a lot of testing. And now AI, like I can write code and like feed it to AI, and I usually if I do like GitHub Copilot, something like that, I will say like, hey, clean this up or find errors in my code base and things like that, and I like it because it comes back and explains to you. It doesn't tell you. It just doesn't
Hmm.
fix it. It says, hey, we're going to change this, and this is why. And like I said earlier, I'm a sponge, and it's like, okay, so I'll know that for next time. Because I mean, not
Yeah.
everyone, I don't think will ever know
Yeah.
everything about, especially the Microsoft stack. But it's good
Yeah, yeah.
to
Even like
have them
terminology,
as a
right?
good
If you need to
resource.
know something that you haven't heard before, like it's going to give you a good explanation of it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to like the resources it gives to people, right, to enable them, right. You don't have to go look for if you're looking for some string or something. You don't have to go look for 10 pages of a book or something. You're like, hey,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just I'm working with like the agents now and like Purview and things like that, and it's like it's incredible. I mean, it's like wow. I mean, this is really cool. I mean, and I think it's going to get there, but I mean, there's still a lot of people that are on Windows 10 today. There's still a lot of people that aren't even hybrid today. You know what I mean? So like I don't- I think like the future like it is AI, but like I don't think it's going to be like taking over anytime soon and
yeah.
like
And
taking
in that
guys'
realm,
jobs and all that
I
stuff.
usually
So
ask people like, what is something in technology or outside of technology that you see like potential in, right? I think one of the ones that somebody was telling me was like for healthcare, like right, you can kind of spot some. I think it was maybe like a maybe Alzheimer's or something. It was like you can kind of catch that a little earlier or have some sort of
right,
information there,
yeah,
right? With technology,
right.
without technology, what are some things that like excite you or you see potential in the future?
Um, Man, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like part of me is like, I am older and I'm like, man, sort of like I want to just like sort of take a step back sometimes. But I know like with the security copilot and stuff like that, man, there's like some really cool things. I plan on blogging a little bit about it. It is a little bit expensive right now, so I have to be quick in my blogs and spin it up. But there's just so many cool things. And like I said, I mean, my youngest is 8 years old, and I just can't even imagine when he's 18. What these AI agents and things like that are going to look like for him. So
You should
trying to prep him the best I can.
you should already become a Microsoft MVP so that you can pay for your security co-pilot license. Come on, Microsoft, get him on there.
Yeah. I know, man. Give me a credit or something. But yeah, I mean it's cool. I mean, I'll get up there and I'll spin it up from time to time to demo for customers, and then I'll spin it down. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of there's. I mean, there's a lot of AI coming, and I think it's like the internet was back in the day. I mean, I do remember before the internet, right? And because I am that old, like, and I remember when we had the internet, we would dial in, but you know, like I remember it was probably scary at that time too, because everybody was like, "What's this internet thing?" and all of that, and you know, it's like now it's what's this AI thing, and I was out there the other day. We have a garden in the backyard, and I had my phone and I asked AI like, "What's wrong with this plant?" And it told me to like check the pH balance and everything because the leaves were wilted. I'm like, how does it? I mean, it was using the camera on my phone, but it's like having a
Yeah,
little
it's like a
gardener out there with
personal
me. So
personal attendant for everything. Oh man,
for
yeah. I
sure,
was gonna
yeah,
ask you,
for sure.
what kind of stuff is in like Security Copilot? I personally haven't spun it up, or really looked into it.
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It is named Security Copilot, and what I've seen a lot of times with my customers is they don't realize that Security Copilot actually does Intune, right? So it's not Intune Copilot. And so a lot of my customers that are like CrowdStrike customers and things like that, when you mention Security Copilot, they're like, "Oh no, we don't want that." But it's like it actually helps Intune as well. Um, you know, Comparing devices and things like that, just troubleshooting. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff. There's stuff under NDA that I can't talk about, but like there's some really cool things that are coming. There's some Intune agents. There's a vulnerability remediation agent out right now where it will tell you like, hey, these devices, have an old version of Notepad++ out there. You need to fix them. Do you want to automatically remediate them and things like that? That's all going to be AI taking care of that. And it's like usually when I work with these customers, they have like the Intune guy. That Intune guy is also the DNS guy. He's the server guy. He's whatever other, he's got like 17 different hats. Like, wouldn't it be nice to just take that off your plate so you could focus on these other things? Like, who cares about patching the device? Who cares about a vulnerability or whatever? Like,
yeah,
just
for
let
sure.
AI handle
If you're
that.
already wearing 17
So,
hats, even 15 hats is better
right.
than the 17
Yeah,
you already.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be that guy, so I feel for him, So I'm fortunate enough now to really
So
get
in
to
your
focus
current
on the
role,
Microsoft stack at my
so you've been there
job.
for
So,
about a month. What are some things like, I guess like to the high level is like, what are some things like you're kind of gonna be doing, or like helping out with?
pretty much the same thing that I have been doing. So, a lot of my job is just taking people, consolidating that security stack, right? So, I love CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike's a great product, but it's like, hey, if you're E5, like you're actually paying for Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's at least get you in passive mode. Let's at least like dip our toes in the water. What are you using for SaaS security? What are you using for DOP? Like I work with a lot of E5 customers that aren't using E5. They're maybe using Intune, like, and that's it, but they're paying for E5, and it's like let's go take a look at the whole thing. Let's go take a big step back. Let's see what you're paying for. And I usually get to go in there and turn those things on for them, whether it be Intune, Defender, Purview, whatever it is. But I really
Nice.
focus around that E5 stack. And recently, like the Entra private access and internet access, which is
What is that?
going back to
I've
my
heard of it,
roots
but
in the
I
network
haven't
stuff.
really
So
dug much into it. Mm-hmm.
Think of it as your VPN replacement. So you can, put a client on your device, and you can basically configure your rules. You can use conditional access, right? So if I want to let's say if I want to RDP a domain controller, I can actually write a rule for that where I have to be in a certain country, or I have to be on a compliant device, or whatever that is. I have to use strong authentication, but it all wraps around conditional access. So think of like a VPN replacement, like the Zscalers and things like that. I know Zscaler is really not a VPN, but um, a lot of those internet filtering, things like that, blocking gambling sites and all that. So it's cool. It's their new hotness. It's part of the Entra suite of products. So that's like ID governance and your face check
Yeah,
and
the
all of that
verified
fun
ID
stuff.
one was really
Verified
interesting. I
ID.
think I was in Florida when that
So
came out. I think it was last year, it was like I was reading that article. I was like,
Yeah.
this is really interesting.
Yeah. 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 I was actually,
Wow.
Steve and I were in Redmond when they announced it. It was funny is they gave us all shirts like that had an Entra Suite on them, and then they were like, you can't wear them because like we weren't, you can't. It was like until June or July or whatever. And it was like, well, great. So they showed us this whole thing, and it was like, cool, man, this is awesome. And then they were like, you can't tell anybody, and you can't wear your shirts. And I was like, all right. So we put the shirts away until Microsoft announced it. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool product, man. I mean, you can sit there and deploy it. I've actually had a couple of customers already where we're replacing, Global Protect and things like that in their environment. There's some other stuff that's currently under NDA, but that's really going to make it a really
And
a viable
it's
product.
nice, right, when you can. It seems like a bad thing, or I don't. It may not a bad thing, but it's like it's nice when you can kind of right. If you already have those tools, if you have two things that do the one thing, right? Why not consolidate and try to get the best use out of the
Right,
tooling, right? Not the concept of do more
right,
with
right.
less, because you already have the tools, right? Just use those tools so you can manage less.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially like the
Yeah.
economics. I mean, I'm not gonna like bring up tariffs or anything like that right now, but like, it's like, hey, you're paying for two products that do the same thing. It's like, have you considered like getting rid of one? Like, I don't use CrowdStrike if you want, but like, quit paying for E5. Like, that's but like, you're paying for two. Like, quit paying for one. I mean, I love Microsoft. I love Defender, but save yourself some money at least. And obviously, go the E5 route, but if CrowdStrike or Sentinel One, those types of things, if you're using those and you're
you know,
happy with them, stay with
no
them. So
CTO or CIO is ever mad to, save a little money. So,
save money, right? Yeah,
so
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
man.
for
So I'm,
sure.
I'm gonna end it with a couple fast
Yeah.
questions. So I usually ask. Oh, I haven't
Okay.
asked in the past. I've been slacking, but I'm always curious. What is your favorite browser? Edge.
Edge. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was Chrome, up until a few years ago. I'm not gonna lie. But with Edge, that Chromium in the background, I mean,
Yup.
it's like, everything's just synced. It's linked together. I have an Outlook account, you know, Windows Hello on my personal
The better
device. It
browser.
syncs,
The better
yeah,
browser.
Edge.
If you're at dinner, are
Yeah.
you grabbing seconds or are you getting ice cream?
Oh man. Uh I guess it just depends on what's for dinner. I usually don't get seconds here at my house because, like I said, I have four teenagers. So I don't usually. I have to like be fast, or I don't get to eat sometimes. But no, I will usually. I haven't had ice cream in a while though, man. I do love ice cream, but I've been
Mhm.
on this whole like not intentional
Wow.
weight loss, but I'm down
Really?
like 70 pounds
Holy
from
cow.
last year. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just by. I mean, I love ice cream, but like like intermittent fasting and things like that. I'm down about 68, 70 pounds last time I checked.
Holy cow. Wow. That's
Dropping
awesome, man.
dropping a
I
lot.
so um
Yeah. Yeah.
and if you could go to a band and see an artist today that are alive, who would you see? Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you see on my wall back there. I'm a big music fan. Sort of. A lot of people don't know this about me. I'm actually deaf in my right ear from the military and from going to rock concerts a lot. I didn't know I was deaf until one day I was getting migraines and I went in there to get a hearing test and they were like, "Yeah, you're actually deaf over here." But what I didn't realize is like my left ear was like overcompensating. But I did get a doctor's note from my wife, so she didn't think I was ignoring her. I just really can't hear her. But man, that's I don't know, man. I mean, I've been to so many concerts back in the day, and like obviously not like Bob Marley, but like I saw a lot of Deftones back in the day. It's just, man, I don't even know. That's a very I
Some of
don't
your
think I can
favorites.
narrow it down to just
Give me a
one.
couple of your favorites. Mhm.
I mean, Deftones, I saw a lot. Back in the day, it was like Korn, like all the Family Values tour, like System of a Down, Rammstein.
Wow.
I've seen Paul McCartney. I've seen Ozzy. I've been to a few Ozfest. Back when I was in the Marines, we did. So I was stationed in 29 Palms, which is close to Coachella, in which they do the big festival. And so they would hire the Marines to do security at Coachella. So we got to go to Coachella, and so I did security
Wow.
for like Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, things like that. So it was cool, man. So I did a lot of rock concerts. Rage Against the Machine. If you've seen them live, they're very loud. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think I have a lot of favorites. I don't think I could narrow it down to just one. I used to be the guy in the mosh pit
Are
and
you
all that
going to
fun
any
stuff. So,
concerts moving forward, or any recents that you went to?
man, no. I'm trying to think. Man, my concert days. I mean, I just remember like some wild nights. No, my daughter's a big music fan. She's 17. I know Metallica was like recently here, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool to go to Metallica? And she's like, Dad, they're old. And I'm like, I'm old, like, and so like I couldn't talk her into going to Metallica, but it was like, yeah, she was like, and so, but I don't know, man. I need to get back
Heck
in
yeah.
that because
Heck
it
yeah.
was definitely a good time for sure.
Well,